Ben Shapiro goes on Fox News to talk about Jimmy Kimmel, what he said, what led to him being fired, the potential of other late night talk show hosts also getting fired, and just to provide a little bit more context into recent developments about Charlie Kirk's assassination. All I ask from you guys is to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. That's it.
First of all, you're in the media. You're seeing this blow up, as we all did in social media over the last 24 hours, especially last night. Your first reaction?
My first reaction is I'm sort of surprised that it took 10 years for the public to sound off on how much Jimmy Kimmel sucks. I mean, the reality is that he's been awful at his job for full on a decade. His ratings have been terrible. He has become not a comedian, but as Guy Benson over there has said, the woke pope of late night comedy. And so affiliates looking at Jimmy Kimmel at this point and saying, you know what, we don't wish to be associated with Jimmy Kimmel's program. That is perfectly well within the ambit of what affiliates very often do when they don't like the programming or they don't like the things that particular hosts are saying. Sinclair has made very clear their feelings about Jimmy Kimmel. They say they're going to replace his show on the air this Friday with an hour-long tribute to all of our friend Charlie Kirk, which I think is exactly the right move. I would not be shocked at all if that tribute received significantly higher ratings than Jimmy Kimmel's show did in that slot.
The left is in denial about this, too. That's one of the best parts. The left thinks that Jimmy Kimmel was cream of the crop, even though he wasn't in the front page for a very long time. His show once used to be very popular. In fact, a lot of the late night shows used to be popular until they started to really turn on 50% of the country, right? A lot of that was during COVID, then attacking Trump. And it's kind of crazy that the late night shows became almost political commentators with this already multi-million person audience. It's bizarre. But the ratings showed that Jimmy Kimmel was already on his way out. I can't help but smile and laugh at that.
Well, back in 2017, there was somebody who already felt like Jimmy Kimmel didn't have great humor. In fact, he tweeted about it. Charlie Kirk. Look at this. Charlie Kirk said then, October 5th, 2017, Jimmy Kimmel isn't funny.
Well, I mean, Charlie was right about a lot of things. That is just another thing that Charlie was right about. And again, I think that the question as to whether Kimmel is losing his position, whether he ever comes back due to public pressure or whether it's due to the Trump administration is an interesting question. But there's no question that the general public was not buying what Jimmy Kimmel was selling. And that was evident from the ratings. And if affiliates, again, say, you know what, we don't wish to put this on our stations, well, nobody has a right to a late night show on ABC or its affiliates.
The left has a really difficult time understanding that freedom of speech does not equal freedom of consequences. They cheered on, in fact, the cancellation of Trump. They cheered on the fact that they wanted him, banned off of all of social media. They wanted him impeached. They wanted him in jail. They wanted all these things. But then they have a complete uproar when it comes to Jimmy Kimmel getting fired. That's like the hill that people are willing to die on. It's weird. It's almost like propaganda within itself, right? Jimmy Kimmel's ratings are coming down. He was saying some stuff that his bosses didn't agree with, that they didn't want to be associated with anymore, and so they cut the cord. It's pretty much that simple. I don't understand why people on the left can't seem to understand that.
The shooter was right-wing. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's not really hard to figure out. In fact, he was very, very right-wing.
He had at least some association or affinity or fascination or interest in this Groyper group, which would lead you to believe that he's actually not a leftist.
There was an incredible amount of angry discourse from the right, blaming the Democrats, blaming liberals, saying, you're the reason this happened. Only to find out, surprise, 22-year-old white dude, love guns, didn't check it in them boxes y'all thought he would check, did he?
Not a leftist, eh? Was dating a trans, had a trans roommate, literally had trans writing engraved and trans, type of slogans and weird radical left ideologies engraved into bullet casings. But yeah, sure. Yeah, that dude was MAGA, right? That guy was totally on the right. I mean, it's ridiculous. The stretch that these people will go to, the lengths that they will go to lie and manipulate the general public to push a weird and sadistic narrative that's the furthest thing from the truth is, quite frankly, sickening.
I mean, at least they are showing us who they are.
It was very clear early on exactly what was going on here. I mean, the early accounts from media outlets, including places like The Guardian and Tablet Magazine, were reporting that friends and family of the shooter said that he had turned very hard to the left. We knew very early on what was etched on those bullets, which included not only gamer language, but a language that was associated with apparently trans issues. And of course, it was pretty clear very early on, as early as Saturday, actually, that this person was a gay man who was in a relationship with another man who believed he was a woman, and they were both into a phenomenon that can only be described as furriness. And so the idea that this was in any way a right-wing shooter was debunked extraordinarily early on, and yet that line continued to be retailed. Now we see a sort of backup line, which is, well, actually, it was just a personal psychological issue. It had to do with his relationships. We've seen the line that actually was apolitical, that had nothing to do with politics at all. All of that is absolute sheer nonsense. He says in those text messages with his gay lover that Charlie Kirk was hateful. And the reason he thought Charlie Kirk was hateful is because of Charlie's views specifically on the gay and trans issues.
So we have all the proof, all the evidence that we need to show that Charlie Kirk was murdered in broad daylight for the world to see because of the opposite, the left, not liking, not agreeing with what Charlie Kirk was saying. So they wanted to take action. And this is the slippery slope of the world that we live in right now. Right. When you stop using words and you resort to violence, you start to see the potential consequences of a collapsing society. And that's kind of where things are right now. So America has to really get a good grasp on things, which is kind of what you're seeing right now. Right. You're seeing, people being fired for consequences of their actions, consequences of their words. That is just a natural circle of life. They are more upset. The left is more upset about people being fired for wrongfully portraying who the shooter was or what his beliefs were than the actual assassination that took place. That's like a weird thing that's going on. I can't understand it. I have really no sympathy or empathy for the people that are getting fired right now for the things that they are saying. I thought it would bring me joy, but all it does is make me sad to know that these people have the same rights as you and I. These people that are almost borderline mentally ill have the same rights, can drive a 10,000 pound car down the road next to you or me, going 100 miles an hour. That's a little frightening. It's a little scary.